Now, if you're thinking about moving to Kuala Lumpur, right, there's something you should know. You can live in the same city and have completely different lifestyle. You might need a car. Someone else might barely even use one. You might love KLCC, but someone else might prefer somewhere completely different. And that's where a lot of foreigners actually get KL totally wrong, because there is quite a few things, right, about living here that sounds right, but not always true. So today, right, we're going to go through 7 things foreigners get wrong about living in Kuala Lumpur, and what you should actually know before choosing where to live. Now, the first one, people say KL is like a cheaper version of Singapore. And if you're looking at property prices, right, I can understand why. Take Four Seasons Place, for example, in KLCC, right? Recent transaction is around 2,900 per square feet. When you compare with Singapore core central region, right, that's roughly around 3,000 Sing dollars per square feet. That's a very huge difference. But you see, you're not buying the same market at a lower price. You see, because Malaysia, right, actually grow like 6% in Q2 2026. So I can say that KL or Malaysia has its own growth story, but it doesn't mean that every properties will also appreciate the same. Singapore has deeper resale liquidity and stronger capital preservation, but KL can actually give you more space and a very different lifestyle. At the high-end market, of course, it also carries more liquidity and currency risk as well. So I wouldn't say like KL is like Singapore at a discount. It's just a very different proposition. And that brings us to another assumption. If Malaysia is cheaper, right, surely everything here must be very cheap, right? For example, rent is cheap, food is cheap, so people just assume that everything here is cheap across the board. But here is where it always doesn't add up. For example, a unit at Star Residence right here in KLCC, maintenance fee is around 65 cents per square feet, including sinking fund. Compare with a typical suburban condo in places like Cheras, Puchong, Kepong, you might be paying around 30 to 45 cents. So even within KL, the difference is not just about the postcode. The building itself really matters. Maintenance, the facilities, the density. And for luxury end, right, branded residence and all can easily be 150 to 2 ringgit per square feet. So you can see large family size unit, right, you're looking at 3 to 4,000 a month, sometimes 40 over 1,000 a year. But here's the honest version. Malaysia is not always cheap across the board. It's a country where street can be cheap, but the lifestyle you choose, right, doesn't have to. Hawker food, domestic help, transport is reasonable. But you add along premium housing, international schools, private healthcare, the cost can really add up very, very fast. So when someone asks me Malaysia is cheap, I will ask them back is that they cheap, but for what kind of lifestyle? Because if you know what generally is cheap and what's not, right, you can actually protect your budget and also your retirement fund. By the way, if you are planning to move to KL, do consider subscribing to my channel, because I cover neighbourhoods, property tours, lifestyle from a very practical point of view, so you can make better decisions when you plan to move here. Now, this next one, right, can really affect your property purchase. A lot of foreigners come to me, they already have like a local partner or nominee to hold the property, right? Honestly, I understand why, because across Southeast Asia, foreigners usually face a much more tighter ownership rules. For example, like in Thailand, you can own a condo, but foreign ownership is limited to like 49% of the building. Vietnam, 30%. Philippines, like it's around 40%. Land ownership is even more restricted in some of these markets. Now, Malaysia is very different. To qualify for residential property, right, you can buy it with your own name. You don't need a local partner or nominee. But of course, there is still rules like you need authority from the state, like foreign consent, and a minimum purchase price of 1 million ringgit if you're buying in Kuala Lumpur, for foreign buyers. So don't assume Malaysia works like the rest of Southeast Asia. The rules here are quite different. By the way, if you are a foreigner considering buying property in Malaysia, I've put together a free foreign buyer guide covering, the key rules, minimum purchase price, tax, ownership. You can check out the YouTube description below. The link is there. Yes, so once you know you can buy here, the next question is, where do foreigners actually live? Now, when you ask any expats living in KL, right, I bet you have heard this before that, live in Mont Kiara. And yes, Mont Kiara is a major expat hub, especially for families. You've got international schools, Japanese, Korean communities, very strong, supermarkets, and plenty of family-sized condos. But here's what a lot of people miss here. not all expats comes to KL for the same lifestyle, you know. So it's not about where expats live, it's about what kind of expat you are. Because for me, it's like this, very simple. If you're a family, you want international schools, Mont Kiara. Young professionals looking for something more vibrant, KLCC or Bangsar. If you're a senior exec, C-level, diplomat, then of course you will appreciate the privacy in Damansara Heights. Mont Kiara, of course, is a great option, you know, but it's not only the option out there. Here's another question. Once you choose the neighborhood, do you actually need a car? This is something that I hear all the time. You know, you need a car to move around in Kuala Lumpur. Honestly, it depends where you will live. If you choose the right location, right, you can get by without actually owning one. For example, if you work in KLCC, a lot of these places is within walking distance. Even if you work in TRX, you can live in Damansara Heights as well and take the MRT. It's only like 6 stops away. Bangsar is a good example. You've got MRT, LRT, mall, cafes, supermarkets all nearby. Even if it's Mont Kiara or Desa ParkCity where there is no MRT station, a lot of the daily needs is already available within the neighborhood itself. So actually you don't need a car. Some people, they just use a Grab, you know, when they need to go somewhere. So, but of course, if you have kids, you do a lot of school runs, you are in sales like me, you know, you move around, you commute everywhere, then having a car makes your life much more easier. So the next myth, right, or misconception that I always face is that, do I need to speak Malay if I live in Kuala Lumpur? Short answer, no, you don't. English is very widely spoken in Malaysia, especially in Kuala Lumpur. You can order food, take a Grab, go hospital, go shopping, engage a property agent like me, you know, go through your daily life by just speaking English. But that does not mean that everyone speaks perfect English. Outside international areas, you'll come across more Bahasa Malaysia or even some Chinese dialects like Cantonese, Mandarin, Hokkien. So no, you don't need to learn Malay before you move here, but learning a few words like Terima kasih, Selamat pagi, it makes the interaction more easier, I could say. So you can get by in English, you don't need to stay in an English speaking bubble. Yeah. Then that brings us to the final misconception. And honestly, this is one of the biggest concern here from foreigners. So yes, let's talk about safety. You know, because when people think about guns, mass shooting, terrorism, drugs, religious extremism, they tend to ask, you know, is Kuala Lumpur actually safe or not? Now, here's something that you might not know, right? In 2026, Global Peace Index, Malaysia actually ranked like 12th out of 163 countries. And that's 4th in Asia Pac region. Take guns, for example. Malaysia has a very strict firearm control. You need to get, you know, license that are issued by the police through a very strict control process. It's not like US where it's an individual right for you to own guns. Yeah. Drugs, you know, you shouldn't be doing drugs or smuggling drugs in Malaysia because penalty here is extremely harsh. We're talking about death sentence and all. Another thing is KL or Malaysia, you know, it's a Muslim majority country. And there is some sensitivities that foreigners should always understand. But when you think about it, right, if you go any neighborhood, you see Buddhist temples, you see mosques, you see churches all throughout the city itself. So I'm not going to tell you that KL is completely risk-free. There is some snatch thief, petty thief. You need to use a lot of common sense. It depends on where you go. But you know, the thing is this, if your biggest concern is like mass shooting, widespread gun violence, unstable environments and all, you'll be very surprised. Actually, KL, it's very, very safe. So don't judge KL by the assumptions you bring with you. Understand it first, engage a guide, engage a property agent like me, you know, to bring you around and decide whether it's for you or not. So yeah, that's a real KL. It's not a one size fits all. Right neighborhood, right home. It depends what kind of lifestyle, you know, that you really want. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in the next video, right? That luxury condos are not for everyone because the most expensive home might not be the right one. So watching on the screen, you're clicking on the screen here. Thanks for watching. I will see you there.